You ain't got a right to tell us how to worship, so let's tell the government to get up out our churches. We ain't choking no more, tell them our hopes in the Lord. The time for speaking is past, it's time to open the doors. You ain't got no right to tell us how to worship, so let's tell the government to get up out our service. We ain't choking no more, tell them our hopes in the Lord. The time for speaking is past, so let's reopen the doors.
Hello, Internet. How are you doing? I'm back from a long time off, and I'm sorry. Things have been crazy lately, you know? So, basically, yeah, this is the first podcast I've done in 3 weeks, so there is a lot of stuff to catch up on. As always, though, could you please like and share this video? Could you comment and say hi? All those things are super helpful for me. And I'm going to be covering a lot of topics. And I really hope people come see this right away, because I found something super crazy and I can't take any credit for it, but I did not know that this video I'm going to show you even existed up until Saturday. And it's crazy, but I'm not going there first. I want to cover a bunch of other topics because, as you know, the Prime Minister of Canada did another backhanded threat against Canadians a week or two ago when he said if 80 or 90% of the population has boosters, that we should be able to avoid restrictions like we've had for the last 2 years. So, you know, another threat against people that do not want to take shots anymore. And so this is an interesting article I found on Western Standard, which I had to disable my pop-up blocker just to be able to read. So, yeah, it's right here, and you get to see Danielle Smith's glowing face over on the side and Brian Jean down at the bottom. So, let's see. The headline is Denmark ends general vaccination for those under 50. Denmark will no longer be offering COVID-19 vaccines to people under 50 years old, months after ending vaccination for those under 18. So, if you didn't know, Denmark has not been vaccinating any children for months. So they have now upped it to anyone under 50 will no longer even be eligible for shots. So thank you, Denmark. According to the Danish Health Authority, the purpose of Denmark's vaccination program is to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death, not to prevent infection with COVID-19. For that reason, the people most likely to experience severe health outcomes from the disease are being prioritized. Let's see here. Prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death. So, and obviously we know that that's not actually helping. We know that, allegedly we know, I'll say, but we know that people are dying at a much higher rate where the shot is introduced, right? So, you know, even though they've canceled it, they're still kind of pushing the narrative that it actually helps stave off the sickness, which I believe that it does none of that, obviously. So, hey, look, a comment. There's talk about something big happening on September 24th. I think they're going to lock every city down, especially the cities with ring roads, due that they can lock the city down. I did see that video that David is talking about. I think in German Parliament or something, they said September 24th will go down You will remember where you were on that day. I do know about this, but I don't really. There's nothing about it. There's nothing really to talk about other than that one video. So you know, who knows what's going to happen that day? Maybe nothing. You know, as a side note, guys, for the last several years, I've watched lots of stuff that said on this date this is going to happen, or around this time this is going to happen, and it didn't. So I think we just need to be cautious and be patient and always be prepared, but we don't really know if something's going to happen that day, even though I did see that video too, David. So something could happen. Anyway, back to the article. So it says, yeah, what do we got here? Experience severe health outcomes from disease. Yeah, okay, so obviously, I don't believe that it helps anybody ward off illness from the vaccine or from COVID. So the vaccine does not ward off illness from COVID-19. Sorry. So it goes on. However, people under 50 who are at a heightened risk of death from COVID-19, such as those with an impaired immune system, will be offered continued vaccination. People working in healthcare and with seniors will also have the option to continue with vaccination. So they're trying to mitigate, I guess, the amount of people getting the shot, I suppose, but they're still giving it to anyone who really wants it, I guess. Oh, here we go. So in addition, we recommend relatives of persons at particularly higher risk accept the offer of vaccination to protect their relatives. So it's really just going back to it not being mandatory for everybody. And you can still find a way to get them if you want them, because you can just say, oh, one of my relatives is ill or whatever. So seems like to me they're doing a backhanded way of just you being able to go get it if you want it. That's what it reads to me. That's the way it reads to me, I should say. So back in June, Denmark announced it would stop giving out COVID-19 vaccines to those under 18 years old, claiming children are at a low risk of severe outcomes. Okay. So, yeah, and there you go. There's the original article. Denmark bans COVID vaccines for children. So there you go. If you want to go see that, you can on Western Standard. Nothing is happening. I'm just reading a comment here. Nothing is happening by accident. Everything is by their design since COVID lockdown. But we are all going to lose loved ones by this jab. Yeah, so I'm not arguing that a lot of it has been orchestrated, or even the majority of it has been orchestrated. What I'm saying is when they talk about these special dates coming up and having meaning, sometimes it's just a distraction. I don't know. What I will say this is that the week that the Queen has died, there has been nothing but massive cancellations of concerts coming up. So that's another thing to look into. I don't know if you've heard about that, David. But yeah, you guys can look into the fact that a whole bunch of music groups or artists have canceled their concerts for the next few months. So that's weird, isn't it? So it is kind of a bad sign, isn't it? I won't argue with you there. What is all of those notifications? Look at that. You guys can't look at it. I'm sorry. Okay. Get out of here. Oh, there we go. So David says, time will tell. I think the Queen's death was released on their timeline. So this is interesting because, so basically I have heard this theory that she died. And it was actually like more than a week ago, but they've just wanted it to all go right now. So I don't know. Yeah, I saw that too. It's weird why so many canceled. So now Lindy says, first Queen Elizabeth died at age 69. This queen dies at 96. See the bad juju numbers? Yeah, so I don't know if I can really get into the numerology stuff. I wouldn't worry about that too much, guys. Ignatius says, dude, write me back on Messenger. I'm sorry, man. I will email you the logo. He wants to do something for me, and I'm stupid, and I haven't responded to him. So I apologize. I apologize, man. I'm sorry. He's just trying to help me, and I have been ignoring him. I've been so busy. We house sat for 2 weeks. So I wasn't even at my own house, so that was kind of rough. So I apologize, dude. But yeah, let's move on. As you know, the Conservative Party picked its new leader, Pierre Poilievre. Polivier. I mean, when I read it, I see Polivier, but I'm not French, so I'm not an expert. Anyway, so Justin Trudeau made quick time in making sure that everyone knows that he's basically a Nazi who hates everybody and wants your grandma to die. And I'm sorry, but yeah, we are going to listen to Justin Trudeau talk again. And I know that that's hard for you out there listening, because you go to alternative media sources so that you don't have to listen to him. But here he is, and I apologize.
Buzzwords. Dog whistle.
Buzzwords, dog whistles. I just got to stop right there. That's how you always start an attack on a conservative, because dog whistling is the act of, communicating to your silent base who actually knows that you're secretly a neo-Nazi and that you hate black people and indigenous people. And that's what Pierre did. He dog whistled to his Nazi base.
And careless attacks don't add up to a plan for Canadians. Attacking the institutions that make our society fair, safe, and free is not responsible leadership. Telling people they can opt out of inflation by investing their savings in volatile cryptocurrencies is not responsible leadership. By the way, anyone who followed that advice would have seen their life savings destroyed.
See the smug look on his face when he says that? What's amazing is I don't even know what Pierre has said about crypto, but if he's talking about crypto in general versus Bitcoin, that's different. If he's lumping in Bitcoin with crypto, those things are different. They're different things. I don't have any crypto at all. But yeah, crypto and Bitcoin are different. So that being said, I don't know what Pierre's even said about it, but it was just, it's just hard to get through. See, you have to attack Bitcoin because it allows me to have money that Justin doesn't know about, right? So on your tax form, it says, also declare all the Bitcoin you have. No, the reason I have Bitcoin is so I don't have to declare it. That's the whole point, Justin. That's the whole point. Anyway, moving on.
Fighting against vaccines that saved millions of lives.
So again, we obviously know that's a lie. They haven't saved any lives and people are dying. You can do a Google search of suddenly died and see how big the searches have went in the last 2 years. I don't think Pierre Polivier has actually attacked vaccines. I believe he's actually been fairly pro-vaccine, and also, I think he's just pro-choice on the matter. You can go get a vaccine if you want, which I think is dumb. They should be illegal already. But, I'll take that over forcing them into you. And obviously I don't even trust Pierre, but You know, he has to be better than this, right? I'm not voting for the Conservative Party, but Pierre has to be better than this.
That's not responsible leadership. Opposing the support and investments that have helped save jobs, businesses, and families during the pandemic, that's not responsible leadership. Now, I heard Mr. Polyev talking about how much we wasted on Canadians over the past couple of years. Let me be very clear. Being there for workers.
Now, do you really think that Pierre Poilievre, I'm sorry. Do you really believe he used the term wasted money on Canadians? He probably said they wasted money. But I highly doubt he said wasted money on Canadians. But as of course, this is to slander, malign, and destroy a man because Justin Trudeau does not want to give up his power, and he is going to lose to Pierre unless the merger with the NDP is effective. Let's hope it's not. But I don't think that Justin Trudeau knows that the globalists have already replaced him. You see, they don't care about him either. He's just a useful puppet for their agenda. And so he has fulfilled his purpose. And now that people can't stand him and there is simply no chance to make another Justin Trudeau win even look legitimate, he has to be replaced. And so enter Mr. Popular. So the reason why I feel like this whole thing with Pierre is a scam, and you know what, I'm going to let him finish.
For families, for seniors, for young people, for businesses. It was the right thing to do. It was the smart thing to do. Having Canadians back is something we will never back down from.
Whoever writes his speeches, man, you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, on the new page, died suddenly. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm just gonna post this. So, yeah. So basically, with Pierre Poilievre, the reason why I think there's something amiss is, one, where was he for 2 years? This is what I say to everybody when they're excited about him. Well, where was he? But here's my big problem. I used to be a Conservative Party member, and so I still get emails from the MP in my area, which is Dane Lloyd, who is a shilly McShillerson. And he sent out his email for the last election fully endorsing Aaron O'Toole, who was a leftist, but with blue logos, with a blue sign, standing on the Conservative Party logo, completely left of center. Not the only thing conservative about him was the way he dressed, right? And that's not supposed to be funny or anything, but he was not conservative, and he ran on the platform true blue conservative, left of center. These green energy bucks he wanted you to accumulate. He was fully green agenda garbage. Right? Pierre is supposed to be against all of that stuff, and yet now Dane Lloyd sent out his endorsement of Pierre, like before he was leader. So you mean to tell me that you looked at Aaron O'Toole's policies and went, wow, these are really awesome. I care about green energy and not lowering taxes and basically just freezing everything the Liberals are doing and coasting for 4 years while still mildly pushing through a globalist agenda. And now you want me to believe that all of a sudden Your full tilt Pierre Polivier, he's got completely different policy platform. It's completely different. And yet you, Dane Lloyd, want to now put your backing behind him, even though he's like the exact opposite. So, I mean, that doesn't actually impugn Pierre. Really what it shows is that Dane Lloyd is a weasel who will do whatever he needs to stay in the good books of who he thinks is going to be the leader. So he endorses who he thinks is going to win, not who he actually believes has the best policies, right? That's what Dane Lloyd is. So, yes. So, oh man, David, you're just giving me awesome comments here. Anyway, I got to move on. So, I wanted to show you guys this video though, and I don't know if you've seen this, but it's called Breakfast with Justin, or possibly Justin Trudeau, and it's Pierre sitting down for breakfast with Justin. Justin Trudeau's not actually there. It's like he's talking to the camera, and he's going to explain some of the issues. And I really like this format. I thought it was kind of funny. And, like, you have to understand, like, do I trust this man? No. But I understand why he's so popular. He's charismatic. He's normal looking. He says all the right things. And this is just another example of that. So we're going to listen.
Oh, Justin, you're awake. You made it. Have a seat. Have a coffee. You need some. Wakey, wakey time. Thanks very much for taking my invitation to have a little breakfast. I know you're just back from your vacation in Costa Rica. And there's a few things you might not have noticed while you were gone. Starting with the price of coffee. It's up 14% in 1 year. Not just coffee, Justin. Bacon is up 8%. Milk to put in your coffee, it's up 7%. Bread's up 15%, and the butter on the bread, that's up 17%, Justin. Eggs, up 16%. So the average Canadian can't even dream of going on a vacation right now to Costa Rica. They're just dreaming about, well, affording food. In fact, there's a poll out, Justin, you might find interesting. About a quarter of Canadians are now borrowing money just for essentials like eating. Justin, can you imagine taking out a loan so that you can eat? Remember when you...
He does that every time he eats, actually, when you think about it, because when he's jet setting across the country and he's using taxpayer dollars to indulge himself, he's really taking out a loan against the country every time that he has no ability to pay back, nor would he ever, or no intent to. Right? So realistically, I mean, Justin Trudeau exclusively lives off of people's money, right? But the tragedy of this is that you would have to physically take out a loan to get groceries. Thankfully, my family has not went there yet. I'm making enough money that my family is living, and we've had charity and help from others along the way and been blessed. But that's because we go to a church with a family that looks after each other. I do want to point something out really quick. You'll notice that Pierre Poilievre cut his eggs with his, like, he stabbed a fork into his egg and then he, like, cut it with a knife. Now, I'm all about using a knife, but you don't need to cut eggs with a knife, man. That's like serial killer stuff. Don't cut your eggs with a knife, man. You don't need to do that.
You said that you were borrowing money so that Canadians didn't have to. Well, now Canadians are borrowing up a storm because they can't afford the higher prices that you've imposed on them, right? You know, it's called inflation, or just inflation. I like to put your name in there because it gets your attention. Here's how it happens. You print money
Just
to pay for your
inflation.
deficits. $400 billion. You increase the money supply in our economy by about 20% in 2 years. More money chasing fewer goods, that equals higher prices. Let me break it down for you. Imagine there's an economy with 10 pieces of bread and $10. Well, it would be $1 for each piece of bread. If you double the number of dollars, Justin, to 20, you don't get twice as rich. It's just that $20 to buy 10 pieces of bread is now $2 for each piece. In other words, you've doubled the price by doubling the money. Well, that's what happens when you create cash without creating the stuff that cash buys. So we have 10% food price inflation in Canada today. 10%. And overall, our inflation rate is near a 40-year high. So what are your plans to do about it? Well, you want to further increase the carbon tax by 200%. Justin, gas prices have been hovering near all-time highs already. And you want to continue running these monster deficits that will bid up the price of goods. And finally, you want to make food more expensive by forcing farmers to cut back on the fertilizer that they use to make our food by 30%. Now, I want you to stop and think, how does it...
So I do want to address that comment that I just posted. I believe Pierre, is he the one or is it Daniel Smith? Is he the one that said no one in his party will be allowed to be affiliated with the WEF? So I lean heavily towards the controlled opposition side, but for him to come out and say you won't be allowed to be associated with the WEF and be in the party is pretty bold. Excuse me. It's pretty bold if he's put there by the WEF. I mean, you could just lie, right? I guess, but it seems... I feel like we have to be fair and make sure that we know that we're actually saying what is true about him. Because, well, that's the right thing to do, right? Is to represent people accurately. And if I were just to go off of what he said, he sounds great. But I don't trust him.
help the environment. If you force farmers to reduce their food production for every acre of land, they're going to have to use a bigger footprint of land to make the same amount of food, which forces them, of course, to drive longer distances in those big tractors and combines and burn more fuel. Beyond that, because they would not be competitive with global food prices, we'd have to import more food. And that food would have to be transported by ship, train, and truck, all burning fuel as well. And by the way, Justin, didn't you notice during COVID how reckless it was for us to depend on the rest of the world for our essentials? Shouldn't we be producing our own food here? We have among the most abundant supply of farmland of any country on planet Earth. And you want us to import more food, excuse me, it's so crazy, I can't even say it. You want us to import more food from other countries with poorer environmental standards? Justin, it doesn't make sense. That's why I invited you here. I wanted to get your head back in the game here. So this is what I'm proposing. Why don't you cancel the attack on our farmers, get rid of this fertilizer mandate, axe the carbon tax so that they can produce our food more affordably, and we can repatriate more of our food and other production back to this country rather than sending our jobs and production to faraway polluting lands. Why don't you stop printing money to pay your bills by bringing in a pay-as-you-go law that requires government find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending? That way, we won't have to put all this inflationary cash into the economy. And I know that's hard. You have to be disciplined to find savings, Justin. But maybe we should replace you with a single mom who knows how to run a budget. Because right now, Justin, single moms are able to run budgets better than you do. Unfortunately, lately they've been doing...
He's dog whistling to his single mom base, you see, Justin. Anyway, moving on.
Doing that by making a lot of sacrifices that you've imposed on them. And there are single moms who are literally cutting back on their kids' diets, putting water in their kids' milk because they can't afford the 10% year-over-year food inflation that you have imposed on them. So why don't you listen to my common sense ideas? Let's tackle inflation, make paychecks go further.
That would be
Stop
awesome.
creating cash and start creating more of what cash buys. In other words, Justin, wake up and smell the coffee.
Also, he did it in French. Okay. I want to read this comment, but there's like a lot going on in it. And it's kind of hard to read, so I'm not going to post it. I'm sorry, man. It's just kind of like, there's like a lot of, I think I know what you're saying, but yeah, you guys can go into the comments and read it. His words are too good to be true. I get it. Trust me, I know. You feel like this pang of excitement. Like, what if he was legit, right? What if he really did? What if he really did what he said he was going to do, right? And, we can pray to God that he will be convicted and that he's made lots of promises. God can use anyone. And God could save this man and make him want to live up to his promises. We don't know. So we just have to hope that if he gets elected, that he does 3/4 or half of the things he says he's going to do. That's it. Okay. So guys, I have something crazy for you. I found this video on band.video. Did you know that Steve Bannon did an interview with Jeffrey Epstein for 15 hours? And it's never been released? And this is why there's that title. What does Time's Up mean? Now, what I'm going to tell you is I don't know what Time's Up means. I think it has something to do with like the feminist movement, but I don't really know. Anna says, "Amen. I do get excited, but then I come back to reality." Yeah, I know, right? I'm just like, keep it together. He's probably too good to be true. And I'm not voting for the Conservatives anyway. It's not happening. I'm not voting for Dane Lloyd. It will never happen. You've heard me say it on this 100 times if you even watch this. All right. So anyway, this Jeffrey Epstein interview. You can see footage of it here. I'm not going to watch the full video with you guys, but in the full video, the guy that made this video says that you can go find the trailer unhindered on YouTube, or like unedited, but it's really hard to find. He said that if you type in Epstein Time's Up, you'll get the trailer on YouTube. I could not find it myself. Obviously, if you try to search for the name of the documentary, you will find nothing at all. But apparently it is on there and you can find it. But we are going to watch this Epstein thing because it's crazy. And we're going to watch it from the start. What does that look like for us? Beautiful. Okay. Oh.
I made my living from old thinking, but the future is for the way women think.
The way women think.
That's correct.
Is that not a sop because of all the depravity you've done against young women? And your new sop is that their women's thinking is the future?
No, I've always believed that women would in fact be able to take over. I'm a firm believer and supporter of Time's Up.
Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here, and
So that's what I'm saying. I don't know what Time's Up means, but I assume it had something to do with like feminism or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to let him give you just a brief explanation.
Were you aware that there was a 15-hour-long interview with one and only Jeffrey Epstein?
Not to mention with Steve Bannon doing the interview. How crazy is that? So I will go to where it starts. I think it's right here. Sorry, save the timestamp in my brain.
That's before.
So he's going to give you a little leeway into it, and then we're going to watch the entire trailer.
Because, I mean, most people I show this to cannot believe it, including huge Steve Bannon fans and people who've been studying Epstein for quite some time. So check out this trailer.
Next month marks 2 years since the death of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein inside a New York City jail.
We were underage. We were little girls. By the time I was 16, I brought him up to 75 girls.
But he was glib, and he lived essentially like he was Gatsby. He was an absolutely terrifying person to encounter.
You own an island, right?
True. Thank you very much.
Two islands, the islands of Dr. Moreau.
Correct.
Jeffrey Epstein was a billionaire New York businessman whose vast wealth brought an arrogance that knew no limits. He acted as if he could have anything he craved.
Reporting the FBI is now looking into how it can interview Britain's Prince Andrew over his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I made my living from old thinking, but the future is for the way women think.
The way women think.
That's correct.
Is that not a sop because of all the depravity you've done against young women? And your new sop is that their women's thinking is the future?
No, I've always believed that women would in fact be able to take over. I'm a firm believer and supporter of Time's Up.
Federal prosecutors said yesterday video of Epstein's jail cell when he made his first suicide attempt no longer exists.
And Jeffrey Edward Epstein?
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Yes.
Epstein got away with his crimes because nearly every element of society allowed him to get away with them.
This morning, we're learning new details of the exact cause of death of former registered sex offender and financier Jeffrey Epstein.
The greatest threat to people put in solitary confinement is they try to kill themselves. Imagine that. You're only in a room for 24 hours, you start to go crazy.
So that blew my mind. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really even care about the documentary. I want the 15 hours of interview. I don't know about you guys, but I'm actually thinking about, like, you know, taking the trailer out of this video and re-uploading it everywhere I can. And you know, Steve Bannon just turned himself in the other day. I don't know if he's in jail or not right now. I haven't been paying attention to that. But Steve Bannon needs to release this thing, like, now. Does he not? I mean, we need to see this video. We have to. It's crazy. We gotta, right? We gotta see this video. So, moving on, though. Speaking of the British royal family, as we know, the Queen passed away, and I understand that, you know, a lot of people in my circles think she's like a blood-drinking lizard person. I'm not totally convinced of that. King Charles is a blood-sucking lizard person. Like, figuratively on the lizard. I'm not really sure. You know, why don't you ask him on Getter? I don't know what that is. I don't really listen to Steve Bannon, or like, I've never really followed him at all. So that is why I have not asked him. But if you know where you can possibly even get him to address you, please ask him. Please ask him. That would be awesome. Like, do it. Like, let's go get him, right? Twitter, all that stuff. Let's get him. I don't know. We got to ask him. But anyway, speaking of the British royal family, the king is now Charles. And I'm sure we all saw him hissing at his servant the other day when he didn't take the pen box fast enough for him. But that's not what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you a breakdown of the history of the British royal family, of the Windsors, and the things surrounding them. And it's also going to discuss the missing children in Kamloops, I believe it is. I made a video a couple months ago where I basically admitted that I didn't believe that the Queen and Prince Philip went to Kamloops and abducted children anymore. The only evidence we have is a man saying that he saw it happen. But I will say this. Sorry, my mouse is falling. They weren't even in that area of the country at that time. They did visit the country that year and at that time, but they were never in Kamloops. Now, maybe there's some sort of gap in their timelines. I don't know, but Lauren Southern did a really long video on this theory that the Queen abducted children. Now, obviously this ties into the missing Indigenous children stuff, and the bodies that were allegedly found, which weren't, right? That's all been proven to be a gross fabrication. No mass graves have been found yet. And so we have to just wade into this whole thing carefully. But other than that, you have a history of the British royal family and some really interesting things about them. But you do have the guy, I think his name's Richard Coombs. His last name's Coombs. We'll see. Michael, maybe. He is the one that said that he saw the Queen and Prince Philip leave with children and never came back. And then he died a year later in hospital, which, you know, it's a year later. I mean, coincidence isn't even on the radar, right? I mean, coincidence would be him dying 2 days later. A year, though, is kind of pretty far away from the original event of him doing this interview. So we're going to watch that video, and I just wanted to precursor that for you guys because I really don't believe that one anymore, because a lot of the missing children stuff was actually started by this guy in Canada who was a pastor, and he basically kind of went like free man sovereignty guy, and he was like putting out warrants against the Queen for her arrest and stuff, and all like, and he has no ability to make those things. He has like, but it's all under this free man stuff. I maybe I'm representing what his argument would be, but you know, he seemed to be like a little nuts. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna watch the video. All right. This is by Greg Reese, also from Band.video.
Everyone says that today, the royal family is nothing more than a ceremonial figure, even though they choose the government, have final approval for all legislation, and own half the country. And so while we remember Queen Elizabeth, let us not forget how this incestuous family has used their own children.
Incestuous is correct.
Parliamentary lawfare over trading rights between England and Scotland led to the first iteration of the United Kingdom in 1707 and created the legal groundwork for George of Hanover to be crowned King of England and Ireland in 1714. He was 55 years old, married to his first cousin, and didn't speak any English because he was from the German House of Hanover. The English people were not happy about this, and his coronation was met with riots all across the country, followed by years of rebellions. His grandson, King George III, inspired the American Revolution, and when his granddaughter Victoria married her first cousin, Prince Albert, the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha took sway over the country. Throughout the First World War, the people of England were questioning the loyalty of the German bloodlines who ruled over them, which prompted the royal family to change their name to Windsor in 1917. 9 years later, Queen Elizabeth was born, who was initiated into the Druid Order in 1946, married Prince Philip of Nazi bloodlines in 1947, and gave birth to Charles in 1948. In 2010, William Coombs, survivor of Canada's infamous residential schools, were the mass graves of children.
So hold on a second. The Queen married Philip in 1947. He comes from Nazi bloodlines, but that would mean that he was born after that. In my head, when I listen to something like Bloodlines, when I listen to something like Bloodlines, or I hear that term, I think of he was born after the fact. And then it shows a picture of him circled. So like he had direct Nazi ties, it looks like, is what the argument is. These are things I don't know, right? I do know that he said he'd like to come back as a virus and wipe out half the planet or whatever, which is pretty wild. So that's a real quote from Prince Philip. Anyway, let's keep going.
Children were found, claimed to have witnessed Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip visit the Kamloops residential schools.
Let's restart.
Prince Philip of Nazi bloodlines in 1947 and gave birth to Charles in 1948. In 2010, William Coombs, survivor of Canada's infamous residential schools where the mass graves of children were found, claimed to have witnessed Queen Elizabeth.
So, Greg Reese, no mass graves have been found. That has not happened.
Elizabeth and Prince Philip visit the Kamloops residential school in 1964, where they took 10 of the children away with them, never to return. A year later, William Coombs dies in the hospital. In 1988, Prince Philip told the German press that he hoped...
Okay, like, give me the link to that video of that nurse talking about how she witnessed him be murdered. That's important. I didn't even notice that when I watched this. So, I mean, give me that video. I want that video that nurse just came out with. Or that nurse has. Where's that video, man? Show me the video. Anyway, okay, moving on.
Prince Philip told the German press that he hopes to be reincarnated as a deadly virus to help with the population problem. And his son, King Charles, likes to joke on television how he is related to Dracula.
His Royal Highness Prince Charles, who can trace his ancestry back to Romania's dark and distant past.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler, you see. So I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
As it were.
These
royals... Sorry, to be fair, that's probably the best joke he's ever made, right? Like, come on, give the guy some credit. Stake in the country. Get it? Impaler. Hey, okay.
Are the result of an incestuous breeding program wherein children were used as a way to gain power over the masses. So it's no surprise that they are caught up with the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, who made a living using children to leverage power, and Jimmy Savile, who had unfettered access to rape hundreds of children inside NHS hospitals. And
so I'm going to go into Jimmy Savile on a different episode. I think it's important that you guys know who this guy was and how much influence he had and how much power he had, and that he was not only knighted by the Queen of England, he was knighted by a pope. I didn't even know that existed, but it does. Anyway, I'll go into it more on a different episode, but he might be England's most prolific child molester ever, and he was directly connected with the royal family.
Was a dear friend of King Charles, along with
a dear friend even.
Klaus Schwab. King Charles
is check it out, it's Klaus Schwab. Wow. It's funny, I missed things in this video.
Founder of the Great Reset. He's as green as Greta Thunberg. And last year, he announced the need for a military-style campaign to bring the world to zero emissions.
Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP.
So, quick note. When this video was originally going around, people were sending it and sharing it saying he says, at his disposal. And it was like, who's his? Who's he talking about? It's like, it's clearly he has a British accent. He's got the highfalutin one, right? So he says, hits disposal. And, yeah, people were thinking, like, is he talking about the Antichrist? It's like, calm down. Context of the entire conversation is massive private enterprise is what he was talking about. It has all this money at its disposal. You can go, I went and watched the whole video so I could figure it out for myself. Just, it's interesting that they use this clip.
And with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders, it offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition. So, how do we do it?
We know how they'll do it. By cutting off Europe's fuel and forcing the people back into the 1700s. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Just great music, though. They have great music on there. Wow. Okay, guys. So, some pretty crazy stuff out there. I want to talk about something a little personal, though. So, it actually just happened today. So, talking to someone at work, and I don't really remember how the conversation came up, but I basically said, like, well, the reason that you're listless and it's just, you're not, things aren't going well for you is because you've never turned to Christ for the forgiveness of your sins. And so me and this guy speak pretty candidly to each other, and it's just like, it's just what it is. But he didn't really like that. He said, well, I have my own Jesus. And I was like, well, your own Jesus doesn't exist. And so it kind of got a little tense for a minute. And he made some kind of comment to me. I can't remember exactly how it got there, but it basically turned into, well, you read the Bible and you know what's in it. And he kind of said, like, that's the problem. And he's like, but like, I live it. Like, I live it out. And I said, oh, that's interesting. How do you live it out if you don't know what it says? And then he didn't want to talk to me anymore, but I pushed him a little bit more after that. I said, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? And he said, well, there's people out there that think all you have to do is believe in Jesus, and then you can go to heaven and you can just be terrible to people. Those weren't his exact words. I can't say his exact words. And it's interesting, right? Because a lot of these people have a Roman Catholic background and things like that. And so realistically, it's funny because it's like, it's extremely works based on one end, because you hate the fact that Christians just think that they can get into heaven, but you think that you've lived a good enough life to get into heaven based on your own merit. Which one's worse? Especially if you don't even know what it says. So, real quick, I just wanted to get into the fact that, and it's like, I wasn't mad at him. I heard it and I just went like, wow, man, I can't believe you're saying something like that to me, like basically implying that like I don't do anything nice for anybody, and I just believe that I'm getting into heaven and so I can be terrible to people. And meanwhile, he thinks that he's living this amazing life, but I work with the person all the time, and there's really not much there to look at works either, right? He helps people move couches and stuff, and he's nice to people, and yeah, he thinks that that's going to get him into heaven, and it can't, right? And so I wish that he would listen to this so I could tell him what Ephesians 2:8-9 says. And this is for my Roman Catholic friends who think that works are part of salvation. Because Ephesians 2:8-9 says, and If you are a Bible believer, you know this. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, so that no one may boast. You know what? Let's keep reading. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. So not only are you not saved by your works, when you are made a new creation in Christ, you are called to then go do good works. And so what do we know? We know that good works are an expression of our faith. And so if you're out there right now and you think that your good deeds have merit, the only thing that your good deeds could do is demonstrate to others that you are a believer. But if you are not a believer, your good works do nothing for you. And I think that if you looked at your good works, you'd know that they come from selfishness. And they only come from actually wanting to self-serve. Even when we're nice to people as unbelievers, it's to make ourselves feel better. I was a pretty good dude. You know, when I think back to me being an unbeliever, I think I was a pretty nice guy. I was really aggressive and I'd snap. And I had the worst temper ever. But like realistically, I was still a really nice guy, right? And so, you always think you're a pretty good guy. Like I'm nice to people. I've driven people home at 3 a.m. that needed my help. There was no other agenda there. You know what I mean? Like there's always an agenda. Is it so you can talk to a girl? Is it so that you can accumulate like gossip about people? Whatever reason it is, right? And so good deeds mean nothing. Good deeds cannot help you. And when you really take a look at your life, you don't really have that many good deeds anyway. Honestly, you don't. And neither do I. That's not the point. So, guys, with that, I just thought I'd leave you with a small taste of gospel truth, that Jesus Christ is the only way. You don't get to make up your own Jesus. And if you claim to be a follower of the Bible, but you don't know what's in it, you can't do anything. But, oh man, it slipped my mind. This is actually what I wanted to say. So this is my point. Like, so someone says, well, I do what's in the Bible. I live my life by the Bible, you know, and you just read it. Okay. Do you go out and preach the gospel, making disciples of the nations? Oh, you don't do that. Okay. That's interesting. So that's something that Jesus commanded. So do you live your life by what the Bible tells you to do? Because if you did, you go preach the gospel to people. Do you practice sexual immorality? Oh, well, the Bible says not to do that, right? So these people that say like, well, do unto others as you would have unto them. No, go to the other commands. And I would say, actually, that is my favorite one, because the thing that most non-Christians hate, who say like, oh, I just do the teachings of Jesus, what they really hate the most is the command to go preach the gospel and make disciples of the nations. That's really what they don't want you to do. But if they say they're going to believe the Bible, or if they say that they act it out and they live life in accordance with what Jesus taught, then why don't they go out and make disciples of the nations? Right? Anyway, I'm not trying to be condescending. It's just the fact of the matter is that you don't live your life by what the Bible teaches if you don't even know what's in it. So study the Word, believe the Word, repent of your sin, trust in Jesus Christ for the forgiveness of your sins, and stop making an idol of the Vidal Sassoon Jesus, right? That flowy-haired Jesus is not a real Jesus. He doesn't exist. He's a figment of your imagination. And if you don't repent to the real Jesus, you're going to have to stand before him and give an account of why you wouldn't. So let's move on. Let's move on to me closing the episode. I am a scatterbrain tonight. Anyway, guys, I love you. And I might do another episode tomorrow night to try and catch up or something, or on Saturday. I'm not sure. But I will see you guys soon. Okay. Devin out.